I've got the January Bargain Bead Box here, and again, I received mine kind of late, so I'm a little bit behind everybody else. So, I'm assuming everybody else has their box, and they've either gone through it or seen it on another channel. So, I'm just going to kind of spread the stuff out and briefly look through it, and spend most of the time trying to design a few things. So, let me talk to you about the Bargain Bead Box and do the basics and get them out of the way. This is a box that is a monthly subscription. Comes in a bag like this, and it's $17.95 a month. If you use the code GGC2, you will get $2 off your first box. And every month is a theme. This month is Happy New Year. And it features romantic palette of rose and delicate pink hues. So it also has on the back a shipment identification key. Each bag inside is numbered according to the key so that you can see exactly what you have. And there is a sister store that you can purchase things from, and there's also a coupon included and a contest that you can enter. So let's go ahead and look at what's inside the box, and then we'll try to make something. So basically what we've got is we've got a really big medallion piece here. We've got some chandelier components, and they have little hearts in them. They're cute. Some chandelier components. And then with the rest of the metal stuff, we have some chain, some rondelle spacer beads, some jump rings, some hooks, and some eye pins, and some bead caps. All of these are in rose gold. And then we have this really pretty flower component. I'm going to take this out, and it looks like this is number 18. So it is a hand-carved rose quartz gemstone pendant. So we've got this. This is pretty. And some... No, these aren't bead caps. So this must be 19, which is hand-carved rose quartz gemstone flower beads. Those are pretty too. So we've got those. And then we've got some little bell flowers. Number 15 is 10-piece pressed glass flower beads, magenta. So let's look at these. These are pretty too. So I'm not going through them, each one, and spending a bunch of time on them. I just wanted to kind of look at them, give you an idea. We've got some crystal, and we've got a bunch of rose quartz beads. And there's another crystal and some rhodonite beads. And that is what we have. That's quite a bit of stuff to work with. So I'm just going to think about it for a few minutes here and then see if I can come up with something for you. So I have decided vaguely in my mind what I want to do. I'm going to make a focal of the carved rose quartz flower here. And I'm going to string it, and then once I string it, I am going to fringe back through the beads and make some fringe type little embellishments all the way down the chain. But I'm only going to make it on the front of the necklace, and then I will attach chain to the back so that I don't have to fringe for 20 years. However, you can make it as long as you want. You can make the entire necklace fringed or on your stringing, or you can make it like I'm going to. So if you're going to make it like I'm going to, cut about 14 inches of beadalon 7. I am using, because you want a finer wire. It doesn't have to be beadalon 7, but you don't want it to be a really thick wire. You don't want it to be like 39 strand wire. You want it to be a 7 strand or somewhere around there. You might even get away with a 19, but stay as fine as you can. Some fine tiger's tail, something. And cut 14 inches of it. If you want to make a full necklace without the chain in the back, then you want to cut whatever length you want your necklace to be. So if you want it to be 18, cut about 20 inches. If you want it to be 20, cut about 22, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of my own beads too, because I find that all the rose gold or the rose quartz and everything that came with my flower pendant are just not the same tone of pink. So I kind of want to bring out this tone of pink a little bit more. So I did go ahead and open up the strand of the rondelle crystals that came in the box, the little flowers. And then I added some 6mm and 4mm powder pink glass pearls of my own. I am also planning on using some of these rose gold rondelles that came in the box. I went to Hobby Lobby, and right now they have their strands on sale. All of them yellow, or not yellow, excuse me, green, red, and brown labeled, I think, are $2.99 a strand. Or a package. So I picked up a couple, and I like these check beads. These are 6mm faceted glass check beads, and they have kind of a mottled pink color in them. And then I have some of these little crystal butterflies. I may use some of those. I'm also going to use some 6/0 Tohos that I picked up at Michael's, and I hope I said Michael's and not Hobby Lobby, because I went to Michael's. And then some 11/0 seed beads. And I'm just going to, and some crimp beads. These are beadalon size 2, and they're in the bright copper color. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to scoot some of this back so you don't have to look at it, and rearrange. And I'm going to take the piece of wire that I cut, and I'm going to make a little loop on the end first. So I'm going to pick up a crimp bead. Actually, I think I'll slide my pendant on first. So I'm just going to slide my pendant on first. Sorry guys, I'm designing. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to put this on, center it, and then I'm going to pick up one of the little rose gold rondelles on either side. And then I'm going to pick up a 6mm glass pearl, and you can add whatever beads you have in your stash from past boxes or whatever. Find something that you think is pretty. It doesn't have to be perfectly matched. It doesn't have to be the same thing I'm using. This will work with any beads. So let's see how that stays there. That looks okay. Now I'm going to open my Toho 6/0s, and I'm going to use some 6/0s to string it so that I have something to fringe back through. So I'm going to open this package because I didn't bother to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've started stringing my 6/0s on here, and I'm just going to string until I get about 1.5 inches away from the end on either side, and then I'm going to crimp them off, leaving a little loop at the end. So you could use jump rings too, and I'll show you when we get there, but I'm just thinking this through. And I'm just going to keep stringing these on both sides. Let's see, what does that look like? Yeah. And I will continue stringing them so you can see it. And I will be back when I get the 6/0 strung on both sides to the point that I want them to be. Now I have strung this until I have 40 6/0 seed beads on either side. That's about 10 inches. So on my beadboard it goes to the 5 on either side on the last groove in my beadboard. So that's going to be a nice focal in the front of the necklace. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to center these by putting the cords together, or the beading wire together at the end here. Center it. And then I'm going to clip off one side just so that when I'm working with the other side, that one doesn't fall apart. And then I'm going to use a size 2 beadalon crimp bead, and I'm going to slide it on my wire. And I think I'm actually going to pick up an 11/0 on either side first, just to kind of taper it down a little. So I think I'll put an 11-0 on this side, and then an 11-0 on this side. And then that way these beads won't slide over my crimp tube. And let me recenter this. Okay. Yeah, that doesn't work very well. I'm going to have to use a different clip because that just slides right through. So let's see. What about, where's my other one? What about this one? Okay. Yeah, that's better. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pick up a crimp bead. And when we make these loops so that we can attach our chain to it, we don't want to crimp these beads together really tight on here. So we want to leave a little bit of wiggle room between the beads because we are going to sew back through them and do some fringing. So let me get you close here. Now I have my crimp tube on here. I'm going to go back through the crimp tube. Maybe. Okay. And then I'm just going to slide through a few beads. Doesn't matter how many. And I'm going to pull a loop into this wire here. Now, make sure that you don't grip this really tight. We've got to have some wiggle room. So right here is when you're going to make sure you have a little bit of space on here. So make sure that they move around a little bit. Not a ton. You don't want huge gaps. But as you pull it, you want to have a couple millimeters in between them. And then we are going to go ahead and crimp this. Now, make your loop big enough to fit your chain or a jump ring through here. Let's see, now I just lost all my nice little movement. Just adjust it until you can get it where you want it. And then I'm going to use my crimping tool, and as I've shown you a million times, I'm going to place it in the second divot closest to the handle, and I am going to squeeze. And then once I've squeezed, I have a fold in the middle here. I'm going to center that fold onto my crimp tool in the first divot closest to the tip, and I'm going to turn it sideways like this and then push the two sides that I just created on either side of the fold together. And now I have a nice crimp, just like that. And then I'm just going to cut off this wire. But, let's see, cut this off. And then I'm going to go to this side of the necklace, and I'm going to do the same thing, making sure I leave some movement between my beads, and go ahead and crimp another loop on the end, just like that. If you're having problems with it, you could stick a pencil tip in the loop so that you can pull it and you can make your loop if you'd like, or put something little in there so that you can make your loop without it changing sizes. But really, you should be able to do it pretty well without something in there. But if you need it, go ahead and put something in there, wrap it around it, and do your crimping, okay? Okay, so now you can see I've gone ahead and crimped off the other end, and you can also see that I have movement between my beads, and that's what I want. I don't want them really tight together, so make sure that you have some room, and make sure your loops on either side are about the same size when you make them with your crimp bead. Now you're going to need some thread and a beading needle. I'm using a size 10 beading needle. You can also use a size 12. I'm using 8-pound nanofill. You can also use 10-pound nanofill or 6 or 8-pound Fireline. 8-pound may be a little bit much. You'll want to stay with a smaller thread, so probably 6-pound. And then I have put onto my needle about 3.5 feet. Now the longer you make this thread, the more likely you are to tangle. You're going to need a lot of thread. So what we will do is we will extend as we run out, if we run out. So make sure that you put on a length that's comfortable to work with. Now I'm going to take the end of my thread and I'm going to just put it underneath my necklace here like this, and I'm going to tie a knot around my necklace, and I'm going to slide between the beads, and I think I'll go right between this first 6/0 right here and the second 6/0, and then I'm just going to tie a couple of knots. You should probably leave yourself enough room to actually tie it, but that's all right. Here we go. And I know this doesn't seem like it's all that secure. I'm going to tie another one. But once you've woven this through a million times doing your fringing, this isn't going to come off. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I've left a little bit of a tail here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew up into the first bead with my needle. And now I'm ready to start fringing. You can cut this down a little bit because it's just going to get in your way. Don't cut it down really short. Leave a little bit hanging out, and you can cut it off later, but you don't want it to come off while you're doing your first couple beads. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with some smaller beads at the top, and then I'm just going to kind of graduate and make it bigger and fuller as I get to the bottom. And I'm going to go between each bead making a fringe stitch. You can also use, you'll need some 11/0 seed beads. You can also use your 6/0s as a fringe too if you'd like. So let's get these 11/0s over here. And you can pick up an 11/0 first, or you can just pick up a bead. I think I'm going to go ahead and pick up an 11/0 first. I'm going to pick up my 4mm pearl, and then I'm going to pick up an 11/0. And I'm going to drop it down to the necklace. And it's going to sit right there at the end where my thread is coming out. Let me get you closer. And now I'm just going to go around the 11/0 seed bead. Hang on, I'm tangled. And I'm going to go into the pearl, and then into the 11/0 underneath it, and then into the 6/0 right beneath it. And then I'm going to pull my thread through. As you get more and more fringe on here, it's easy to tangle your thread as you're doing this. So that's why I said don't use tons. Just use a good amount. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick up another 11/0. I'm going to pick up one of these little rondelles that came in the box, and another 11/0. And I'm going to slide down. It doesn't matter what beads you use anything you like. You can even use some 6/0 seed beads. You can use whatever you want. Then I'm going to go around the 11/0. I'm going to go back into the 11/0 underneath the rondelle, and then into the next 6/0 seed bead on my necklace. Just like that. And now I'm coming out of this 6/0, and I think I will pick up another pearl. I want my beads on top a little bit smaller, so I'm going to use mostly pearls and rondelles and maybe some of my 6/0s. So I have an 11/0, a pearl, and an 11/0 again, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to go down through actually around the 11/0, through the pearl, through the 11/0, behind it, and then just pull it through. Then I will sew into the next 6/0 seed bead. And I'm just going to continue doing this. This time I'm going to use a 6/0, first an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. Get you close again, and drop this down. And then go around the 11/0, into the 6/0, into the 11/0. Like I said, you could just get a bunch of your 6/0 seed beads out and do this in different colors of 6/0s too. It would be really pretty that way too. So use whatever you have on hand and just continue. We're going to continue fringing like this between each bead until we get to here. And then we'll come back and we'll turn around and go back up again. We're going to do each half one at a time. So we'll do this entire half and then we'll do this entire half. Okay, so you can see this is just my first pass, and you can see how it's looking. And I think I'm going to spread some of these little flowers out through, so I thought I'd show you how to use them. Same concept, pick up an 11-0, pick up the flower, pick up an 11-0, or you can even put a pearl inside the 11-0. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, or inside the flower, I mean. You can put a pearl inside it, and then you can just go back through like this, and then down into the next bead and pull. So that looks pretty too. And yeah, I'll probably keep the pearls in it, but that's what that looks like. So also when you do if you have something bigger like the butterfly, just the same concept. You can see I put one on here, exactly the same thing. Just use different shapes, different sizes, whatever you'd like. And I'm going to continue now. Okay, so now as you can see, I've worked my way all the way down to where I'm coming out between my last 6-0 and my pearl on my focal here. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my last bead, and then I'm going to go around it. And then I'm going to come back up through that 6-0. And now my thread is headed this direction, and I can go back up through. What I'm doing with mine, now you have to remember you only have 10 of these flower beads or whatever, so I put 5 on this side already. So on my next passes I won't use any more of these flower beads because I know that I have to have 5 for the other side. And the other side doesn't have to match perfectly, but you want to kind of strategically place them on the same general areas that you did on this side so that it looks somewhat symmetrical. Of course, you don't have to make it symmetrical if you don't want that look, but that's kind of how I do it. And then what I did down here is I just used my bigger, prettier beads down here. I didn't use any of the small ones. I'm going to go ahead and make another pass up with the big ones down here so it's really full here. And then just kind of intersperse the little ones and use little ones down here so that it kind of billows out bigger in front. And then I'll make one more pass and I'll put little beads down in here so that it kind of blends all together. So that's how I'm doing that. Now I'm going to work my way back up, and I'm getting short on thread, so I will come back and show you how to extend that too. But first I am going to pick up, let's see, I don't have one of these right there, and I'm just kind of looking at what beads I have and just picking up what I don't have and using the big ones down here like I said. Just going to drop that down, get you closer, and then I'm going to go around the bead into the 11-0 underneath it, go around the 11-0 into the bead, into the 11-0 underneath it, and then up through my next 6-0 and exit. And this is where it gets a little bit trickier with your thread because everything is going to want to tangle. Now I'm just going to continue picking up my beads and fringing all the way till I get to the top here, just working my way back up. When I get a little bit shorter on thread, I'll come back and show you how to extend it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to extend your fire line. I have another video that will show you in a little bit more detail, but I'm running out of my thread. See, I took my needle off, I've cut another piece of thread the length that I want it, and I'm going to cross these two threads, get you a little closer, and I'm going to bring the thread on my piece underneath and around the new thread. And then I'm going to bring those two threads together and bring the thread on my piece underneath and around again. So I'm tying a square knot, that's all I'm doing. Like this. And then I'm going to pull my threads on all sides until that square knot is tight like this. And then I am just going to cut these ends short. My scissors are dull, so hopefully this works. I'm just going to cut these short. You can pull your longer thread through so that you don't have to cut it, but I'm just cutting them short. Like I said, my scissors are dull. Now you can either use your thread burner or you can use a lighter. If you use a lighter, just put the flame close and just melt down some tiny little blobs. I'm going to use my thread burner for this. And I'm just going to create little tiny blobs on the end of my thread, because as it melts it just kind of curls up on itself and it creates these little tiny balls, see? And you can use a lighter, just get the lighter close and put it towards the bottom of the flame and just get it close and just watch it kind of curl up. You want very small little blobs at the end. If you get them too big, then it's hard to pass back through your beads with them, especially if you're using little tiny beads. We're not, so it's not going to be too bad. And then you just take the thread and pull until those two knots slide together. And now your line is joined and it is very strong. A small little knot there that will pass through my beads, and I can just continue fringing. Okay, so now I have finished my second pass, and as you can see, it's getting really nice and full. At this point, we can be done going through them if we want, or we can make one more pass. I think I want to make one more pass just using little beads, just kind of fill it in and make it a little bit more full. And then once I have done my last pass, now with this pass, you have to know that it's going to be harder, because the more beads you get on here, the more likely you are to get your thread tangled in here. So each time you pull your thread through, you need to look at it and make sure it's not tangled around any of your other beads and that it's pulling all the way through. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to put in one more pass of small, just the pearls and the rondelles, and maybe some 6/0 seed beads, just to kind of fill it in a little bit more. I have the shape I want. I want the bigger beads down here. I want it to kind of graduate. So I am going to just fill it in a little bit more with the small ones, and then I will show you how to tie off this side, and then we'll do exactly the same thing to this side. Okay, so I have just completed my third pass, coming back down. Now I could go all the way back up again if I wanted to, but I think this is full enough. I like the way it looks. It's fine. So what I've done is I've put in my last bead, and I'm coming out of this 6/0 seed bead right here. Right there. So I need to tie this off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go down through this pearl and exit between the rondelle and the pearl here. Make sure your thread doesn't get caught. And then I'm just going to go underneath these two beads, bring my thread between them, make a loop, go through the loop, and tie a knot. And then I'm going to go up a couple of beads, the center core beads, the 6/0 seed beads are what I'm going through. And just a few of them. Don't pull it so tight that you wrinkle up your piece. You want it to stay really nice and neat. And now that I am through a couple beads, I'm going to go up through, I'm just going to choose one of my fringes, and I'm going to go up through that fringe again. Through the 11/0, the rondelle, and then I'll go through the 11/0 on top, back down the rondelle, back through the 11/0 here. This is just going to entangle my thread further in so that it isn't loose. And then I'm going to go up a couple more core beads. And then I'll choose another of my fringes and go up through it again. Let's see, let's go up through this pearl. Doesn't matter which one. This is just to make sure that your thread is wrapped through your piece really well so that it doesn't unravel easily. And then I'm going to go back down into this pearl and the 11/0 underneath it. And you just have to part your beads, push them around, and you'll find as you're fringing your multiple layers, you have to do that too. You just have to find a way to get through them. And then I'll go up a couple more beads. And now I can cut this off, or I can continue going up through beads and entangling my thread further. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, is I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. You can tie another knot here if you'd like. It's kind of hard not to get entangled in all the beads, so that's why I like to sew up through. And then, because this string is so wrapped through, it's very unlikely that it's going to unravel. And once I've done that, this is one side of my necklace completed. Now I will tie my thread back on just like I did on this side, and I'll pass through again. And I'll just reference this side to kind of see what beads I put where and just kind of match it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of spread them out pretty much the same. I put big ones down at the bottom and smaller ones at top. And I'll just look at it as I'm doing it, as I'm passing through, and make sure that I get it spread out pretty evenly, and make sure that this side looks like this side as closely as I can get it. And then I will be back and show you the finished piece. It's exactly the same process. We will do exactly the same thing. I'll make 3 passes, then I'll come through and I'll tie it off again. And I'll come back and we'll finish up the back of the necklace. Okay, so now you can see I have finished both sides, and they're not exactly the same. I just kind of tried to distribute beads evenly, the types of beads. And as this moves around, you see different beads at different times anyway. But I made it nice and full, and I did the 3 passes like I showed you. And now I have cut 2 equal portions of chain. And I didn't cut them very long because I want this to be about 18 inches. And so I just cut long enough to make it 18 inches long. And then I have 4 jump rings that I'm going to use and a clasp. And all I'm going to do is open a jump ring, slip it on the little loops we made with our beading wire. So I'm just going to open this, slide this on, and then I'll slide my chain on, close it, and then I'll grab another one of my jump rings. See if I can find where it opens here, and open it. And then I'll slide on my clasp. And close it. And the clasp was something I had in my own stash, of course. These jump rings too. I think they sent some jump rings, but I think they're a little bit big. Well, no, they're not that big. Well, maybe they didn't. I have to look at my stuff. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm putting on the jump rings and the chain. And then I will do the other half, and I'll come back and show you the finished product. And here, my friends, is my finished necklace. And I'm really happy with this. I think it turned out really pretty. And don't feel discouraged if you don't get the bead box. These are technique videos. You can do this with anything. You can use any focal. You don't even have to have a focal. You can just make the whole thing 6/0 seed beads and then just fringe through any beads you want. Make it in any color scheme. Use any types of beads that you would like to use. You could make a focal down here, just making this all bigger beads and then graduate up into small beads. It's a really pretty technique. Works great every time. And I think that it turns out really nice. Looks really good on the neck. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I will come back and make a few more things. But I like to break these down into part 1, 2, and 3 videos. It just makes it easier for you to find the tutorial you like. And it's also not so long of a video. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.